Okay, are we ready to start?
Yep, that's us ready now.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. You can see on the screen, I'm Anne O'Reilly. I'm the chair of WRDA, and it's great to see you all. It's a whole new experience, chairing an AGM online. But what we'll do is we're going to go through the agenda, and if there's anything that you need, just either put, is it the clappy hand, or else just wave your hand. But I see Eileen's now wearing a ribbon too. My God. We can, we will, I'll make sure to try and bring you in as needed. We put a lot of thought into this agenda to try to make it as meaningful as possible online over the next hour or so. So we have a bit of formalities to do first off, and then we'll move into the focus really is to try to hear from the staff. I think the most interesting bit is to hear from Anne directly as part of her feedback. And also we've 4 staff on the agenda are going to bring the strategic plan to life. So I think that will just really, I think it's a bit I'm looking forward to most, to hear directly from the staff. But just to begin then, just to welcome you all. We're just going to note the apologies in full. But Megan, do you want to just give me what the list of apologies are, or not the list, but just the numbers?
Sure. We have 3 apologies. Karen Armstrong, Kathy Chambers, and Sandra.
Can't hear you, Megan. Are you?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, just give us the note. Just see them as a note. Don't need to go through them. Okay, so well, we've got the apologies. Just then moving on then to the chair's comments. You'll have seen in the report, our annual report, there's just a couple of things I would want to say. 3 things. One is the COVID situation, and when we've looked in as a board and just noting what's going on across the women's sector, what has really stood out is how receptive and flexible and present the women's sector has been for women at a time of crisis and change. And it's very important that we sort of recognize that. It has been one hell of a year. It's still a lot to do, but without the women's sector, I think I said, one wonders whether how much women and kids and families would have been able to sort of cope in the way that they have. And I think WRDA's work, particularly on the feminist recovery plan, has just brought to bear what that impact has been. But it's just really to note that. The second thing is just the WRDA staff itself of 11. I mean, I was very struck in Anne's report where she gave a bit of an insight about the impact on the staff itself. And it's interesting to see the childcare responsibilities, the elder care responsibilities, you know, the number of the staff that we've had to do homeschooling, as well as try to continue their work for WRDA. And I just want again to say thank you to the staff for their flexibility and for their adaptability and their resilience, and that they've continued despite it all to do really good work for WRDA. And Anne McVicker has shown remarkable leadership this year. There's no doubt about that. Internally, keeping the staff's morale and motivation up, and making sure that we continue to support the staff in the best way that we could. And the last thing I want to mention, which I didn't and I failed to do, is to thank the board of WRDA. We've had a great year of new people coming in. We've got 4 or 5 new board members that have come in and given up their time and expertise and energy. And having gone through that process of recruitment, it's been a real pleasure and pride to note the quality of the new board members that have come in to join us, where we now have approximately 12 board members. And I think the diversity and the experience and the skill of the board is excellent. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure to chair WRDA. And a particular thank you to the vice chair, who she has had to step in once or twice in chairing in chairing the board on my behalf, and I really do appreciate Robin Scott for doing that and supporting to make sure that we've continued to meet our board responsibilities and requirements. It's one of the most important things we've done this year, is in relation to make sure, as a result of COVID, our staff are safe and remain safe as they go about their business. So that's all from me in relation to Chair's comments. I just want then going into the formalities of the meeting. If you note the minutes of our last meeting, and if there was anything in those minutes in terms of point of clarity or any comments to make about the minutes. I will just take it that if people aren't sort of putting their hands up or commenting, I'll just be progressing on. So minutes of the last meeting, are we happy then with those? Nod, please. Okay, and if we were able to get a first and seconder for those minutes, and Anne's going to keep an eye to that for me. Helen, first, seconder, and Danielle. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Anne. So Helen and Danielle, thank you very much for formalising the minutes for us. Moving on then to the presentation of accounts. But again, just before I hand over to Geraldine, sometimes it's very hard to acknowledge the work that goes on behind the scenes. And if any of you know Geraldine Burns, she's sort of like a spreadsheet queen. She knows the projects, knows the funds, knows what it is in terms of funder requirements that keeps this organisation sustainable and safe and effective. And she's done that from home. And it's something that she's a role behind the scenes, but really is the bedrock on which we can continue to survive and sustain ourselves as an organisation. And again, Geraldine, I just want to say thank you to you, because it's not easy to have to do all of this work, and you're still making sure that the staff get paid every month as well. So dealing with all our finances and our funding and making sure that we remain solvent and solid and sustainable is no mean achievement. And I just want to put on record our thanks for that. So on that note, can you then just take us through in relation to the presentation of accounts?
Yeah, well, can I just say thank you very much, Anne. It was very kind of you, and I could see staff clapping and that, so I really appreciate it. Thank you, because it has been like difficult working from home some of the time, so it has, I have to say, I'm getting used to it. But I came into WRDA to do the AGM because I normally end up doing the Zoom meetings in the bedroom, and I didn't think it was going to be very professional doing it in the bedroom, so I didn't, because my husband Chris is working from home, so he's at the dining room and I'm in the kitchen, and I just thought, no, I'm going to do this in WRDA. So I've been in WRDA all day today, and I have to say it's great sitting at a desk at a proper PC with a keyboard and a mouse and a chair. Oh my God, bless. I'm not going to complain ever again about coming into WRDA, so I'm not. But no, okay, so I'll get on to the business of the accounts. So this year, the income we had was 584,000, and that's an increase of 140,000 on last year. And page 22, if anyone's interested, they can see the breakdown from the grants that we had. So the grants were 520,000. Last year, our restricted income was 420,000. So that's an increase this year of 99,000, which is due mainly as a result of receiving income from the National Lottery and the Rosa project. We also had a loan from Joseph Rowntree that was given to us whenever we bought this building. So it was like 50,000, and it's been written off this year. So it has. So that was great that that's not showing up in our balance sheet. So, and that is showing up as other income. So it is on page 22 of the accounts. So our unrestricted funding this year was almost £64,000, and that's made up of the renting of the room, rent for offices in the building, there's a bit of bank interest. We had earned income, and there was some donations that were given to us, but the bulk of it really is that 50,000 that was written off by Joseph Rowntree. And last year, our unrestricted income was 23,000, and this year it's there's an increase of 40,000 on that. So it was the expenditure this year was 404,000, and you can see the breakdown of that on pages 35 to 36 of the accounts. And last year the expenditure was 397,000, so that's an increase this year of £7,000, which is due mainly, as I mentioned earlier on, just due to the Rosa account. Now, we got money from Joseph Rowntree, but because of the COVID, we were late starting that, so that's still in the accounts. But the largest expenditure, which was on salaries, increased by 19,000, from 283,000 to 303,000, and the main reason for the increase was due to cost of living and incremental pay rises for staff, and we were also able to claim back statutory maternity pay on that. So the financial position at the 31st of March shows a net surplus of £179,000 with an unrestricted surplus of £126,000, and you can see that breakdown on page 12 if anyone's interested in looking. We have a pension liability, and that has decreased by £18,000, but we still have the liability is still £200,000, and our only creditor is the auditor of £3,000. You'll see that in the accounts. And our debtors, which is money that was owed to us, there's PHA, they owed us £104,000, and we were owed a small amount of money from Department for Communities. So it's really important, like, that we were owed £104,000. So it's really important that our cash flow, that we are able to sustain that, and we are really lucky that we are able to do that. The reserves that we have been built up over like 30 odd years. So it has really helped with us with our cash flow, and it means we are in a strong position. I couldn't say nothing, it doesn't mention in our accounts, but COVID, we have had to spend over £8,000 to make our building COVID safe, and that included just getting different things done in the building. You're getting little shelves put up in the toilets, getting the hand sanitizers, just a few bits and pieces done. And then from the point of view of staff working from home, what we had to do was we had to buy some new laptops and, you know, a chair, keyboards. But it's quite surprising that it did all mount up, because whenever I went through to do this here, I just didn't anticipate that we had spent so much. So it was a bit of an eye opener. So it was, but I think it had to be done in order to make staff feel safe as well, make the building COVID safe, and for staff, for their own mental health and whatnot, working from home. So I just thought it was quite interesting just to point that out, and that'll show up in the accounts next year. So it will. So that's all, unless anyone has any questions about the accounts.
Thanks, Geraldine. Just put your hand up or a comment. I'm keeping a wee eye on the comment box, and there is a comment in, but I'll make it relevant to when we come on to the agenda. Anything about the finances? No.
Well, what I need, Anne, is for someone to propose and second.
Yeah.
And for someone.
Yeah. I think, Geraldine, though, just before we do that, I do think it just I mean, that was a great presentation of the finances. It does sort of keep affirming how sustainable WRDA is, how important of the diversity of income that we achieve. But it is important, I think, to note for the minutes that a statutory body owes us the money that it does, and if we hadn't got the sort of diversity of income we had, it would have been much more difficult scenario. And I do think it's important that we do note that. And in terms of the COVID expenditure, I would want to say it was very much the board who decided without any doubt in our own mind that we needed to invest to make the building and staff feel safe. So please don't feel that that 8,000 is badly spent. It was money that we felt was important to spend it, and very much to the heart of keeping all you guys safe as you go about your business. But it is noted in the minutes that that is additional expenditure. So on that basis, would people, again, I need a first and seconder for the accounts.
I propose it.
Eileen, second. Is there someone? Anne, have you noticed anybody? Because I don't see all. Isn't there 35? We're all on this, are we? Just a seconder.
I'm happy to second if needs
Alexa?
be.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Have you got that then, Geraldine?
Yeah, but I need someone to propose and second the auditor as well. So
That's the next one. We're keeping with the auditors. There's no change to auditors. We're satisfied with that service and how it's going. So again, just quickly, someone to first and seconder for maintaining our auditors. Who?
I'll do that.
Who's that?
Anne Hope.
Anne Hope, thank you. Seconder. Anybody?
Caroline's indicating there.
Caroline, yeah, that's great to help me with that. So Caroline, thank you. Well, that takes us so far into the agenda. Moving on then, we have the election of the new directors, and I want to hand over to Anne McVicker to deal with that as part of the agenda. Anne, over to you.
Okay, so as Anne said, we have actually gone through this year and last year a whole exercise in reaching out and getting new board members. We carried out a board skill audit, that would have been last year, and we which basically flagged up where we thought our gaps were. We put out a public advertisement. We went through Community NI, and we advertised in Women's Link and on our social media, etc. And so I'm happy to say that we now have 12 board members. But for the purposes of today, they are now all stood down. And because we haven't had any nominations for new members for this year, I'm going to read out the names of the board members, and then we're looking for a proposer and a seconder to elect the directors en bloc. So they are Anne O'Reilly, Robin Scott, Caroline McCord, Karen Armstrong, Patricia Donald, Eileen Weir, Sandra McCarry, Kathy Chambers, Shannon Green, Anne McGill, Deborah Kelly, Tara Maguire. That's the 12. So if we could have a proposer and a seconder, please.
I'm happy to propose.
Okay, Emma.
I'm happy to second. Kate.
Kate?
Yeah.
That's brilliant, Kate.
Okay. Thanks very much, Anne. So we're back in the driving seat for another 12 months. We, on the agenda now, you will see there are 3 special resolutions that we need now to bring to your attention for approval. And I need to take them through you in an individual way. So just from the formalities, you will see in the notes of the changes, note in relation to, it's in italics now, This is for the memorandum to now include the promotion of health programs for women in disadvantaged and rural communities. I'm sure you'll not remember, but we did seek to do this last year, but we had not sought the permission of the Charity Commission to as part of the process. That process has now been undertaken, and we can now bring that to the AGM for approval. So again, it's just to note that as a special resolution, and if we can accept that now into our articles as a charity. Any opposition to that? Any questions? Any queries about that? Okay. All right. So we are agreed then that that special resolution goes through. The second resolution is one that, based on work we've been doing on membership, what's the best way to describe our membership? And the second one is to change our membership status from affiliate to group members, which means then, rather than being described as affiliates, will be described now as group members, which sort of refer to networks, etc. And that is just sort of again a sort of a change. It's sort of a quick change in terms of how we're going to describe our group members. It's describe them as group members. There is no change to our individual members, so people can still apply as individuals to WRDA and will apply then as group members instead of affiliate members. Are we happy to accept that resolution? Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. The third resolution, thank you. People are beginning to use the system, putting their thumbs up. Thank you for that. The third resolution is, and a lot of organizations are doing that now, is in relation to the status that we're in terms of our inability to meet. And what we want to do, as others are doing, is to include within our articles now the ability to hold electronic means for our AGM the way we're doing today, but to make sure that we now have cover for that in relation to our articles and our of association and our status. So that would be the third resolution that we have for the AGM today. So can we accept that as the third resolution? Okay. And remind me, we don't need to go through other than note these resolutions, is that correct?
I think, Anne, that maybe I think we would need a proposer and a seconder, but for the three of them, we can take the three of them together.
That's what I was hoping. So just again, in terms of formalities, rather than going it individually, now that we've presented those three resolutions to you to be able to make those changes formally, could we have a firster and seconder for those three resolutions?
I'm happy to propose.
Propose. Helen, seconder. Who? The second. Eleanor, thank you. And Helen, that's that over the line. Okay, right. We're on to sort of probably the best part of the meeting in relation to, we want to hear in relation to the work of the organisation over the last 12 months. And that has been articulated in the annual report. And Anne is going to just draw out some of the highlights from the annual report, and then that will be followed up by an input by the four staff in relation to bringing to life the new strategic plan. But let's start with Anne in relation to the presentation of the annual report that tends to look back.
Okay, thank you, Anne, and hi everybody. Glad to see so many faces today. So the annual report gives us an opportunity to present the past year's work. And you know, every year I'm amazed whenever I read through the report in terms of editing the draft report and look at the scale and the reach and the range of activities and work that's been undertaken by our small staff team and by our community facilitators and our volunteers. However, this year, the year which will probably go down as the COVID-19 year, it has just completely changed our lives and our world as we knew it. And our annual report, I believe, is an excellent collaborative example of how WRDA have adapted and changed and to continue to do our work in meeting the needs of our membership and users in the advancement of women's equality and participation in society. It would have been, I suppose, January, and thank goodness last year I actually got a holiday to Florida, went just before Christmas and come back in early January. You know, that was so fortunate that I got that, because I don't know when, probably I'll get another holiday again. But when I was in Florida, there was a lot of talk about COVID. It was popping up on Facebook and that. So really from January, you know, there were rumors that, you know, like COVID was hitting, but I think that we were all kind of burying our heads in the sand. But slowly events started to be cancelled. And in fact, one of the biggest events, it was going to be the CWS delegation to New York, which for the first time, there was a delegation of women's sector reps and government officials. And that was, we were to go out, I think it was the 9th of March, and it was cancelled. And I think whenever it was cancelled, I think that the penny was starting sort of like to drop, that this was starting to get serious. Although that said, we were lucky to get IWD, the rally this year. And I think to my knowledge, that was probably the last rally that was held in Belfast before lockdown. So really we took the decision in early March after International Women's Day. And we took the decision in early March in the interest of the health and safety and well-being of all our staff and our board and our community facilitators and our volunteers, that staff would, until further notice, be working from home. And to be honest, those first few weeks, I think were very difficult. Everybody was struggling. I think that we're all kind of like looking at each other thinking, you know, is this going to last for a few weeks, or is this going to last forever, or, you know, or what do we do in the meantime? Do we just sit in our backsides and, you know, wait for government to tell us that, you know, everything's going to be okay? So it was very difficult, but we did adapt to the unfamiliar working patterns, you know, because, and as I said in the early part of my report, you know, we're all women workers. We were all working from home, where we're all juggling. We all had caring responsibilities. Some of us had elder care responsibilities, child care responsibilities. You know, and that was, you know, that was difficult enough, but, you know, we did it, and we kind of settled into the new normal. And to be honest, probably by the beginning of April, which was only, you know, we were only working from home at that stage for a few weeks. And with the help of technology, we did recalibrate. And I think we realized that there's going to be big challenges here, but we all went for it. And there was a lot of work, and I suppose a lot of pain that I didn't actually articulate in the report, but we got through it. What have those changes been? Well, one of the biggest changes was moving online delivery, what would have been sort of like face-to-face training onto online. And one of the really good examples of that was the BCNB, the breast, cervical, and the bowel cancer awareness screening programs. And I know that the team and with Deirdre, you know, given that guidance, and also I think it takes people like Deirdre who just kind of refused to. She wasn't going to let it beat her. You know, and at every opportunity it was, we've got to move forward, you know, we've got to, got to make this work. And I think with her insistence, it worked out really well. Now, what we did was we made PowerPoints. So there's actually different ways now that the BCNB can be delivered. It can be delivered just sort of like with a PowerPoint, or it can be delivered through Zoom with a PowerPoint and sort of like topping and tailing with a community facilitator or a trainer. The storyboards, we invested, like a lot of other organizations, I'm sure yourselves among them. You know, we had to start to think imaginatively and sort of like more creatively in terms of social media and getting sort of like our messages out there. So we worked with an organisation, Philip, Intersense, and developed these 3 storyboards for the breast, which is now gone out. It's called In the Zone, and I think you'll be able to click on that. I think maybe
I'm going to share some stuff.
Yeah, we're going to see that later, Deirdre. Sorry for stealing your thunder there. And there's another 2 storyboards to come. One is it's called the public cervix announcement for the cervical one, and the bowel one, I think it is show the red card, you know, to bowel cancer. And they have gone down such a treat. I mean, In the Zone, now this was a few weeks ago. At that point, it had been viewed 14,000 times. It had been shared so many hundreds of times, and it is making an impact. And with a lot of our projects, and I'll come on to them. We've also because we are online, we made a decision to invest in a PR company. Terry and Gary Kelly, and we thought that was really important about getting sort of like messages out, and that again for really quite a small investment, that has had such a great reach, and I would really recommend to all of you is to maybe consider something similar. The women's sector lobbyists and our lobbying and advocacy, I have to say, Rachel was basically on that from the very beginning. I think probably it was one of maybe the first sort of like groupings to move to digital, you know, online meetings. And actually, there may be a lot of disadvantages and awful things with COVID, but actually there have been some opportunities as well. And what we have noticed is that some of these meetings, particularly the Women's Policy Group meeting, with going online, attendance has never been better. And that the amount of work and the volume of work that's actually coming out of some of those groups is absolutely fabulous. One of the biggest pieces of work that the Women's Policy Group worked on in the very early stages was the Feminist Recovery Plan. It was launched in July to a very large audience, government officials, funders, and lots of just people like ourselves, and women, working and being part of grassroots women's organisations. And I know that Rachel, and again, I'm not going to steal Rachel's thunder, Rachel's going to be talking about that in terms of the strategic plan, because that's going to be a piece of work that's going to be developed and disseminated over the coming 12 months. Our food relations programme, And there were some sort of like issues with that, because it is very different from the like of the BC&B. You know, it's a program that has been developed by past good relations workers, and it's certainly been embraced by our current good relations coordinator, Elaine, who's made lots of changes to it. So it's kind of, it's very interactive and participative. And I know that Elaine thought it wasn't going to work maybe too well, sort of like online. Now that said, so what Elaine did was literally think sideways, and is currently developing a webinar series, and that is around 1325, women, peace and security. What is good relations? You know, good relations with a gendered lens, etc. And also, Elaine had a very good put on an event for Good Relations Week in September, and it was very well attended with some great speakers. And also, you know, we're not entirely sort of like, we haven't entirely went 100% online. I know that Elaine just this week has completed a 4-week workshop with Shanka Women's Centre doing good relations, actually face to face. So it is still possible to be doing training on a, you know, face to face, and it really just all depends on the venues, the organisations, and the guidelines that they are putting in place to keep the participants and to keep the trainers safe. Another huge success this year has been the Raise Your Voice project. It did go from having face-to-face workshops to actually going directly online. That is a really, you know, it's really worked out well. Previously, that would have been a 3-hour workshop. That's now 2 1-hour workshops online. What is sexual harassment and what constitutes consent. That's working really well. And and again, I'm not going to steal Elaine's thunder because she's going to be talking about this, but there's some fantastic lobbying work that's going on currently with our councils at the minute. And also communications, obviously, whenever you're working from home and whenever everything's online, just becomes more and more important. And Megan is going to be doing a presentation on what's been happening in terms of comms and our membership. But again, that has been absolutely excellent. I really want to pay tribute here to a new project that we just got funded for earlier this year. It's called the MAS project, Maternal Advocacy and Support. We were really fortunate to get 3 years funding, £500,000 from the big lottery, to work with 8 women's centres over years and setting up MAS hubs in each of those centres. Now that's an example of a project that can't go online. You know, we have heard of women who have given birth, you know, during these times, and you know, what they've had to go through, you know, in terms of their partners not, you know, being allowed in for scans and even only allowed in for the birth at the very sort of late stages. So there have been, you know, well before COVID, there have been huge issues and a huge lack of resources to women who are experiencing perinatal mental health issues. And this project is about it, and it's based in the women's centres, because the women's centres are the places that have holistic services. So for example, women, you know, who are experiencing perinatal ill health can go to a women's centre that has the established MAS hub. Their children, their babies can be looked after, you know, in the, you know, in the creche, and that there are also education and training facilities and activities that the women can avail of. So Actually, we recruited, and she's here today. If you want to give us a wave, Claire Anderson. There she is. She only started the project on the 23rd of September. And so far we've had an induction. We've got all the partners all on board, and we're really looking forward to that project being rolled out over the coming months and years. And maybe at our next year's AGM, Claire, you'll be first up for a presentation on the MANS project. And really, in conclusion, I feel that there has very much been it's been a case of we can do this. You know, COVID has created, it's created huge problems, but my staff can do this, have done this. We're also taking communication very seriously. We have had from early March, we meet weekly on Zoom. We have had, we're supporting each other. We've had 2 mindfulness sessions on Zoom, and we've had a number of quizzes, and we try and do fun things as well. But we're all together, and I would like to think that is going to be sustained post-COVID. So really, I want to finish off by thanking all of my staff. You know, I couldn't work with a better bunch of people. So you are all absolutely brilliant. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Anne. Sounds like a lot of hard work, but we need to pay tribute to you too as the leader of the organisation, and just the culture and the ethos and maintaining the motivation and morale is no easy thing when you're dealing with a staff group online. So congratulations to you as well. It is noted and notable. We have our board meetings, just how much we see it every couple of months, and members here get to hear about it annually. And I'm sure they're impressed with the work, but we're equally impressed month in and month out with the sustained level of work that is delivered by WRDA. So congratulations to you in your leadership role as well. One and I we're moving into the last part of the agenda, which is really, we're looking forward now. As Anne has outlined, we did a very wide stakeholder engagement approach around our new strategic plan for 2020 to 2025. God knows what we faced into with 2020. We certainly didn't expect 2020 to fall out the way it did, but we are where we are. And to help us bring that to life, and it's great to hear, we want to hear from 4 staff against the 4 priorities. And you'll note, tackling inequality, Deirdre is going to give us sort of an insight around how that's being brought to life. Then it'll be advocacy and lobbying from Rachel, and I think, as Anne said, big focused on the feminist recovery plan. The third one is leadership and infrastructure, as Elaine, and again, the whole raise your voice as a key element of how leadership has sort of come to life in our partnership approach. And last but not least, Megan, who's done some brilliant work in terms of diversifying our membership across age and across different groups as well, because it was a particular focus that we wanted to put energy and effort into. So after each of them have spoken, if they would I'm not going to do individual introductions. Once one is finished, just move on to the next. What I think is probably best is, if you have any thoughts on any of this, if we waited until the 4 speakers have spoken, would that be okay? Rather than interrupting the flow. So if you have any comments in the box, I think someone's just gone to the loo. If anyone has anything in the book, just put it into the comments as well. We will note them in case there's sort of a particular perspective that we don't get a chance to hear. But before, do you mind, Deirdre, before you start, would you bear in mind that one of the chats that came up from Caroline early on is the question, will WRDA continue to offer training, information and general events via Zoom, even when things return to normal, whatever that looks like, so that it can be able to facilitate people who are maybe not as able to sort of attend face-to-face. If you're feeling disabled, isolated or financially disadvantaged, maybe if you had that, just speak to that if you like in your input to us now. So Deirdre, I'm coming off again and we'll just hear from the 4 staff. So over to you, Deirdre. Deirdre, you unmute?
Sorry.
Can I just
Sorry.
check? Can everyone see the presentation okay? Yeah.
I can't. Rachel, thank you. Rachel, I'm only going to need you to share, please, the storyboard when I've spoken, if you would, because it's only a cover page. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anne. You now know a little bit. Anne McVicker has gave you a bit of background on what's been happening with the breast, cervical and bowel. But that's what the training team are going to report on this afternoon. So that's our flagship BCB programme funded by the PHA. Originally developed to tackle health inequalities in the uptake of cancer screening. Evidence showed women living in deprived circumstances are less likely to attend. So our training model involves a dual approach to the community-based training. On the one hand, we have experienced, skilled staff who deliver bespoke awareness sessions to groups with additional needs. And on the other hand, we have trained community facilitators who deliver, who deliver to their peers. Now, come April, the advent of COVID-19 has unfortunately heightened those inequalities. Rachel's going to actually go into that in a lot more detail, but it has also had a massive impact on cancer screening across the region, across the nation. So it probably would have been hard to have missed the news stories that have been reporting tens of thousands that have missed their routine cancer screening appointments, with potentially hundreds of thousands more deaths expected as a result of routine screening being postponed, or investigations and even life-saving treatments cancelled or postponed. So as the pandemic took hold, it became clear that we wouldn't be able to deliver sessions in the community. Yet it was going to be even more important for us to get the word out there about screening, that screening and early intervention saves lives. So we set about adapting the training for online delivery. The team, as Anne mentioned, now working from home. So we've been working from home from April and negotiating care and responsibilities as well as the technical challenges of the online world. And I mean, there were some real technical challenges, because I'm not sure if anyone in the, we all have different abilities, but I certainly wasn't particularly good, and maybe one or two other members wouldn't mind saying, it wasn't their forte. So there were some real challenges there in terms of getting with it. But we did realize this is going to be the way forward. So the team did rise to the challenge, I think, and throughout Q1, we worked on creating online versions. We also, for what it's worth, did a lot of research, what is going to work, what are other organizations working. So we spoke to a lot of community groups, NICFA, OCN, what platforms are they using, what's likely to work. And we ended up plumping for Zoom. So we now offer each of the breast, cervical and bowel sessions on Zoom. And this is open to either groups or to individuals, where either our staff or the community facilitators present on Zoom. So they present a really detailed PowerPoint of all the salient points, and then facilitate discussion. So it's a virtual classroom. And I think a little bit of a surprise, we have found it works really well. There is really good engagement, and I would, if I was a betting person, I would say we cover as much, as we did in the class. I really do think it's good. We also offer standalone webinars of each. So for anyone that doesn't want to join a class, they can simply get the link for a download, watch it in the comfort of their own home. And these are accessible on the website or just by request. And of course, people can play these on their phone, the tablet, a laptop. So good bit of choice there. We launched the online breast sessions during the summer with an innovative, Anne mentioned it, an innovative animated storyboard. designed by the outreach team. I have to say this was their, this little nugget was their idea, and it was brilliant. They did have expertise from Philip Wilson of Internet Sense, but put a lot of work into it, and I'm actually going to share it with you after this. It's less than 2 minutes, guys. I'm going to share the breast. It works so well. We've got one for the cervical awareness and also one for the bowel. We know now from the PHA that even though screening is up and running again, so it stopped for a couple of months, it's up and running again, but many people still aren't going to their appointments. And one of the big reasons currently is that people are afraid of catching COVID if they go to screening. And in fact, the PHA informed us, less than 10% of women that are currently attending for their cervical smears. Like less than 10%. I mean, it's just, and on top of this, you have the buildup of the thousands that are going to be behind. And I think it's, we're kind of at a frightening stage in terms of cancer awareness. And so it really is imperative that we get the word out. Going forward, the plan is the cervical storyboard is going to be launched later this month. In addition to our usual networks and reach, a lot of it's done via Megan with her great comms. We will also be using PR Kelly. So they're the PR firm that we used before to get it out nationally, and we'll gain some coverage in the papers and local radio. This worked really well with the breast promotion just gone there in October. The bowel storyboard is also nearly completed, but it will be launched in end of December, January. And this is going to be a coordinated promotion with the PHA. They've asked us, they like the breast so much, they said actually they would like to work with us on this one. So they are going to be launching a new bowel test in January. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. The old one here used to be called the FOB test. The new one is going to be the FIT test. And all you need to know is it's better. It's much easier to use. And we're going to work with them and get the bowel storyboard out in a coordinated launch with them in January. So quick summary, the BCB has been adapted for online delivery. To answer, actually, was it Caroline's question? Caroline, what's funny, what we've realized is now we've engaged online much more than we had done before. What we're realizing is we're reaching people that we hadn't reached before. And also, yes, we are definitely going to offer this this is going to be one of the prongs going forward. So it is not, and it's funny, it has taken this for us to realize that we're not getting to as many people. So we will definitely offer online. Now, it has its own challenges in terms of accessibility, because we do know, again, those that are most in need sometimes don't actually have the technical ability to be accessing this, so they mightn't have the gadgets, the broadband or whatever. But yes, for sure, this is going to be in all of our training programs, there will be an online element going forward. Right now, over the next couple of months, the priority is to get the message out. The screening is open and it's safe, and just to try and get people to get back to it. So I'd like to finish just by sharing the breast storyboard with you all now. Thank you.
In the zone. W strefie zagrożenia. بكل تركيز. In the zone. Make sure to check the entire area in the zone, from collarbone to underarm to nipple, breast and chest. Breast cancer is the most common type of cancer affecting women in Northern Ireland, with 1 in 10 women being affected at some time in their life. Know your own breasts. You can do this by carrying out a regular self-examination. Breast self-examination should be done monthly, but not during your period. You can do this either standing or lying, preferably alternating between these 2 methods. Stand opposite a large mirror in a well-lit room. Raise your arms above your head and take a look. Do the same with your arms at your side. Look for swelling, discharge, bulging, redness, dimpling, or a change to position or shape of a nipple. Use the flat surface of the 3 middle fingers to make small overlapping circular motions on the breast tissue, making sure to cover all areas of the breast, either side to side or up and down. Use your right hand to check your left breast for lumps and your left hand to check your right breast. Alternatively, you could do this in the shower with a soapy hand or lying on your back in bed. Did you feel a lump or see a change? Most breast lumps are not cancerous, but every lump or any change in your breasts should be reported to your GP immediately. Know your breasts, look for changes, stay in the zone. Check regularly, and any abnormalities or concerns, please seek medical advice. Your health matters. Early intervention saves lives. Like and share this video to help others.
Okay, was everyone able to hear that all okay and see it?
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, sorry, there were some technical difficulties on my end there, which haven't happened in the run through, of course. Deirdre, are you happy enough for me to go on to the next section then? Great. So I'm gonna just cover the feminist recovery plan now. I'm gonna do it as quick as I can because I know we're running a bit behind time. So let's hope there's no technical difficulties now. Okay. Let's see. So can you all see that okay? And you can hear me okay? Sorry, I can't see any of you, so someone let me know. Great. So the feminist recovery plan came on the back of a huge amount of work going on by the Women's Policy Group. And I know Anne briefly mentioned this in her report, but basically from the very beginning of the pandemic, we were quite lucky that we'd moved a lot of our work online already. So before Christmas for the general election, we have been doing loads of shared work online, creating shared drives and really collaborating remotely on our work, which really helped us when COVID did hit. So this is just some of the initial response that we did for the feminist recovery plan. So a lot of this was in the first 2 weeks of the lockdown. So we had briefings for MLAs on the impact on gender. We had different articles going out. We did a joint statement with the Women's Budget Group on statutory maternity pay, carers allowance, 2-child cap, and a whole range of other issues. Because immediately women who were being furloughed, a lot of them were losing their entitlement to statutory maternity pay as they were only getting 80% of their wages. We also made a significant 60,000 word submission to the Westminster Women and Equalities Committee inquiry, because even despite this, we haven't really seen any response from that committee on Northern Ireland specifically. We submitted evidence to the Domestic Violence and Family Proceedings Bill committee inquiry. We did different briefings as well on the increased domestic violence. We did different articles for NICFA, Just News, and a whole other range of media outlets. And the Childcare for All campaign put out joint statements as well on the impact on childcare. From this, so we were incredibly frustrated to see that there was still absolutely no reference to women in any government response at all. So this is how we decided to make and create and launch the Feminist Recovery Plan. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, just to state that it was developed by 18 members of the Women's Policy Group, and it is by far the biggest piece of work that we've ever taken on. And I'm just hugely thankful to all the women and organisations who contributed to it. Many of you are on this call today, so I just want to thank all of them, first of all. And I also want to thank Aoife, our independent contractor and previous volunteer, who's also supporting the work on this. And to the women's centres whose the data research going on in the women's centres is what informed this plan. And also to Emma, who's been doing a load of graphics for us as well. But that led us to our launch of our plan, which was on the 29th of July 2020. And it was to department officials, ministers, MLAs, councillors, media, a whole range of different groups. And it is 127 pages long itself with 6 main pillars. So it covers economic justice, health, social justice, culture, Brexit and a Bill of Rights, and looking at international best practice. And the main reasons for us doing this is because in Northern Ireland in particular, we were able to see globally that women were being disproportionately impacted by COVID, but because gender equality is so far behind in Northern Ireland, we were seeing it have an even worse impact here. So just a few quick stats for you. 70% of the total health and social care workforce are women. 79% of social care workers are women in Northern Ireland. The vast majority of carers, both paid and unpaid, are women. 85% of part-time workers are women, particularly those in high risk or vulnerable sectors. 70% of workers ineligible for statutory sick pay are women. 91% of lone parents are women. And in Northern Ireland, we're one of the only areas in the world where actually more women have died from coronavirus than men. On top of this, we were also seeing a huge rise in domestic violence. We have no adequate legislation here. And one of the most horrific stats to me was that in the first month of the lockdown, more women were murdered by their partners than in all of 2019. So it's just so clearly evident that women are being impacted in a horrific way, economically, socially, politically, in terms of health, and so on. We also were able to see that without any form of a childcare provision, women again were being disproportionately impacted by quick decisions of having to open schools, close schools, the same with different sectors. And when the executive announced their plan to reopen the economy, they didn't even consider childcare. And we've seen the mess that has caused. So when we launched it, we had a huge range of media attention on this. And again, we went through Kelly PR, kindly sponsored by Reclaim the Agenda. So thank you to Helen. And this is just an example of some of the different articles that went out on the day. So we featured in Belfast Telegraph, Irish News newsletter. We also were able to see that total newspaper circulation was 81,617, but they think total reach was almost 300,000. And then some of the images here are different broadcast coverage that we had. So there were 5 or 6 different interviews that went on with different members of the Women's Policy Group, and we were one of the featured stories on UTV Live. So since then, we presented this to different all-party groups, all MLAs. I'm currently working as well with our new research contractor, which came through the Joseph Rowntree Adaptation Grant. And we've been able to get different responses from the Executive Office. So we have a response so far from all departments in the civil service. And next week, we're hoping to be able to respond to that again. And we're going to be meeting one-on-one with different ministers and presenting this at different levels of both local, national, UK, international level as well. I'm also working on a Women's Centre action plan. So just to emphasize, we pull together this huge amount of evidence, and hundreds of recommendations are made throughout on how women's equality can be protected, not only mitigated against in terms of being disproportionately impacted, but actually women's equality should be enhanced in a post-COVID world if we put care at the core of our economy and see it as a form of our essential infrastructure. And to do that, we want to be able to keep updating the information that we have over the next year, identifying what the main priorities are for women who are impacted in all levels across Northern Ireland. So through the Women's Centre Action Plan, that will be something where we'll be able to go out to all different women's centres and groups, ask them their main priorities, and use that again in our lobbying efforts over the next year. So we also have launched the Feminist Recovery Plan webinar series. So a lot of you will have been in attendance in some of these. So the image here on this slide is probably my favorite webinar we had yet. That was our one on enhancing social justice and women's rights post-COVID. And we had women speakers from Northern Ireland, from South Africa, Uganda, and Sri Lanka. And it was absolutely, truly incredible to see the similarities of what's been going on everywhere and how we're all handling it differently. We also had an incredible webinar on poverty, austerity, universal credit. And thank you to Siobhan at Women's Support Network for being able to coordinate that and speaking at the event. And we had, as a part of International Rural Women's Day, we collaborated with Norwin to run an event as well, specifically looking at rural women. So we have some upcoming events, one of them which ties on very nicely from Deirdre's presentation. So next Wednesday from 1 o'clock, we're running an event on the additional health impacts for marginalised women. So yes, the pandemic and COVID itself is extremely detrimental and deathly to people's health, but we want to know as well what else is going on. So we're looking at the impact on cancer screening. So Paula from WRDA is going to be doing a presentation. We're looking at the impact on perinatal mental health, and Claire will be talking about the new MAS project. Then we also have Alexa from Transgender and I talking about trans women's health specifically. We're going to have a presentation from Alliance for Choice on the barriers to abortion, and also Kendall from Migrant Centre NI, who will cover hostile health environments for migrant women. Then we'll have another event at the end of the month on violence against women in collaboration with Raise Your Voice and Women's Aid. And another event then in December on International Human Rights Day, looking specifically at Brexit, a Bill of Rights, international human rights standards. So there's a link there as well where you can see all of these events, watch the past ones and register. So yeah, that's me. Pretty much done now. But if you have any questions in the chat, just pop them into me. So I'm going to hand over to Elaine now for her section.
Thanks, Rachel. I can't move the screen, so if you could move on to the next slide. Yes. So the part of the strategic plan I'm speaking about is leadership and infrastructure support. And I'm using the example of the Raise Your Voice project specifically because it is a partnership project. So if you want to move on again, Rachel, sorry, treating you like an assistant. So Raise Your Voice is a partnership project, like I said. It began in April 2019. It'll run until June 2021. That's assuming that we don't find another home for it after our funding runs out. It's a partnership project, but it is led by WRDA. The other partners are the Women's Support Network, the Northern Ireland Rural Women's Network, and Reclaim the Agenda. And it's really important that we stress that although it's led by WRDA, the reach, the expertise, the experience of those three organisations are also essential to making it what it is. So it sometimes looks almost like its own organisation, but it really isn't. It's a combination of the abilities of all four organisations. It's also overseen by a steering committee that's made up of a wide range of different organisations, women's organisations, youth, LGBT, grasswork activist groups and so on. There's a huge number of people who are taking part in the sort of overseeing and guidance and advice, and they also open us out in terms of increasing the reach of our project. So if we move on again to the next one, sorry. No, oh, here we go. So part of what we've been doing is becoming over time sort of established as an expert voice on the topic of sexual harassment and sexual violence. And that has been a process that is obviously still ongoing, but it's at the point now where we are the people that people call to ask their opinions on these things when these occur, you know, alongside other organizations, of course, but this kind of work takes time and it takes the partnership of all four. We've also used organizations like Kelly PR, although quite a lot of the work of getting the word out there has been done by the lobbying work that we're taking part in. So what you see in the picture there is two of us, myself and one of our volunteers, Emma Wallace, with two of the Lisburn and Castlereagh councillors. That is one of quite a number of councils at this stage. We've successfully lobbied to bring motions around our submission to the hate crime review, and that was arguing that misogyny should be recognised as a category of hate crime. We've responded to other consultations too, but by bringing this into councils, it doesn't, you know, change what's going to come out of the hate crime review, but it adds weight to what we're doing, and most importantly, it brings these discussions into local chambers all across the country, and it engages people in conversations in a way that consultations themselves sometimes don't really manage to do. And you can see also in that picture that we're holding posters. Those posters, and there's quite a wide variety of them. You can also see behind Anne McVicker there as well. Those posters are part of a public awareness campaign. So this relates to something that came out of the Gillen review into the way courts and the legal system looks at these kinds of crimes. They encouraged a public awareness campaign. So we decided we would do our own one. These posters will be in the council properties of each of the councils that have passed our motion. And while we haven't reached every council in Northern Ireland yet, we have every intention of reaching them all. And we are speaking, in fact, to Mid-Ulster District Council tonight, but these posters should be up soon. It's only COVID, I suppose, that's stopping us seeing them. The next slide, maybe. Sorry. Most day-to-day work of Raise Your Voice is in delivering training. We deliver workshops to women and now also to men all across Northern Ireland. Before the pandemic happened, we were doing these in person. Anne mentioned earlier, 3-hour workshops face-to-face. And we have moved online. In fact, we moved online fairly quickly, and a large part of that was down to Helen Crickard from Reclaim the Agenda doing so much work in the background to get that up and running. And it's really been successful. To go to Carol's question that she popped into the chat earlier, we have reached people that we would previously not have reached. We were reaching people in community groups, in women's centres and so on. And that's fantastic. We want to keep reaching those people, but we also want to reach people unaffiliated with that. And we've reached younger people, more rural people who perhaps aren't close enough to a centre and so on, people with childcare responsibilities, because that can be going on while they're watching and so on. And this training moving online has been really successful. We've done them at all sorts of times of day and night to reach people who've got different kind of hours in their day. It's also helped to cement our reputation as an authority on these topics because of the sheer number of people we're reaching. We are the authority that people will go to because they already know that the training is authoritative and it's something that people aren't receiving necessarily elsewhere. So if we move on to the last slide, I think it is. So to speak about really what this is offering in terms of our strategic plan. This project is being evaluated. So far, there's been an interim evaluation at the halfway point, and that was extremely encouraging. It really stressed that one of the most successful things about the project so far is the partnership working. That partnership itself has strengthened over the period of lockdown because we are actually able to meet online and in detail more often and more, I suppose, firefighting, crisis management and so on is much easier to do online than it is in person, especially given that one of our partners is Nirwan, based down in Dungannon, and it's not so easy to do the travelling on a weekly basis, but it's much easier to zoom in. We also have a steering group that's providing guidance and, like I mentioned before, expanding the reach of the project. So a lot of those partners in the steering group are now coming to us for training to the people that they work for or represent. And that's helping WRDA reach young people that previously we would never have reached before through youth action, as an example. And also the partnership element of the project has been hugely successful. It'll provide a model that WRDA can follow in future partnership projects, and indeed that other women's sector organisations can follow in partnership projects that they may want to take forward in the future. And all of this will be available via the evaluation that is being done. So Raise Your Voice has, it was kind of a tentative step at the beginning in terms of seeing, will this kind of partnership work, or will it all fall apart shortly? And actually the opposite has happened. During the pandemic, it has really given us an opportunity to take off and really focus our attentions. And it's really been an absolute joy taking part in it as well. So that's me. Thank you very much.
Hi there, I'm just going to speak very briefly about the makeup of our membership. If any time you can't hear me or I'm speaking too softly, just, let me know. Before I get started, I'd like just to thank all of our members who took the time over the last year to complete all the various surveys that I've sent out. The responses really do matter, and they have helped inform my work, as you'll see shortly. So we completed a comprehensive membership review in 2019. That survey identified several gaps in the demographic makeup of our membership. For example, young women aged 18 to 34 accounted for just 15% of our individual members in 2019.
Sorry, Megan, I don't know for anyone else, your noise is dipping in and out for me.
I'll move a wee bit closer and hopefully that kind of evens it out.
Yes.
PUL, identifying women, accounted for 19% of our individual members, and in the 2019 sample we had no BAME members at all. So we set targets to improve the representative nature of WRDA's membership. We broadened our social media offering, hosted targeted membership events and increased our e-publication range. We then held a follow-up survey in 2020 to assess our progress. And the results of this survey have been very encouraging. We've increased the percentage of young women in our membership from 15% to 30%, and we've increased the proportion of BAME women from 0% to 6%. So we're very pleased with those improvements. We've also increased the percentage of PUL identifying women in our membership by 5%, so up from 19% in 2019 to 24% in the latest survey sample. And we recognise that this is still well below demographically representative participation. However, it is a step on that journey, and we hope to build on it in the year ahead. We also surveyed our group members in 2020 and found that the majority of our group members are small or micro charities. In fact, over 30% of our group members had no annual income or an annual income of less than £10,000. This indicates that WRDA is reaching every section of the women's movement, including those organisations most in need of infrastructure support and advocacy. Furthermore, over 70% of our group members worked in an area other than Belfast. This supports our mission to work regionally to advance women's equality and participation in society. Overall, our membership has increased by 20% between the September 2019 survey and the October 2020 survey. 2020 has been a year of growth in our membership and a year of improvement in what we offer our members. I'd like to finish just by thanking all of you for your support and feedback throughout the year. Thanks very much.
Megan, that wasn't easy for you. Appreciate that. But we did get a flavour of it. I think, as was said, we set out with a goal to increase the diversity of young women. We were being told we were too old as a membership, Anne McVicker. Never forget that at last year's AGM. So we put a focus on younger women, the diverse group of women, and having a more diversity across the organisation. So Megan, you've done brilliant work on that. Without your effort and energy into that, we would be in a different place. So I just want, because we didn't get a real appreciation of just how much effort and energy put into it. So I do want to say it's highly regarded and it's excellent, outstanding work that you've achieved. So well done to you. Okay, so we're into the last sort of part, and I think you're getting claps all around, Megan. I hope you can see that. And I know from across the chat line, there has been a real feedback from, across those that are with us here today in relation to the appreciation of the staff and the work that you're doing. So, thank you to the four of you for what you've done. You brought the strategic plan to life. Rather than seeing it on black and white on a page, and that has spoken well. And also I want to thank those of you who've attended the AGM today. It's been our first go at this, and I know you are sort of strong members of WRDA, either as individual members, group members, or members of the Women's Policy Group. And in a sense, WRDA's strength is its relationships internally as a staff group, and also its relationships externally. We would not be who we are without both of those knitting and fitting together. So we really do appreciate how important it is to nurture relationships with you and with your organisations. Again, just as a final note, I just want to thank Anne McVicker and the team again for all the hard work throughout the year, and also fellow board members. It's, as I said, been a privilege and a pleasure to chair WRDA. It's one of the joys that I have is to be associated with this organisation. So can I thank you all for staying with us for the hour and a half of this AGM, and can I wish you all well and stay safe, and I hope your families stay safe. And may we, as we go into 2021, start meeting up and seeing each other in a different way, but not losing sight of the impact of online in terms of increasing the diversity and range of the people that we can work with. It's not either or, it seems, moving forward. It's almost like it's both. So from that point of view, thank you. Wish you well and take care of yourselves.